Welcome back to another week here on MWO Sports. Ryan Drury. I'll be joined as always by Steve Sabourin and Clarke. Loaded show this week. We will chat with our friend Ian Doig of the Ian Doig Golf Academy about Cory Conners and his impressive showing at the last two tournaments. What happened to Lee Westwood and JT's incredible victory at the Players Championship. Then we'll be joined by Sabres superfan and host of the Two Goalies One Mic podcast, Duane Steinel, to talk about the unfortunate situation with his beloved Sabres. Where do they go from here? How do they fix it? We'll try and answer that with Duane. And then at the end, we'll be joined as always by our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from CoolBet. You're listening to and watching MWO Sports, brought to you by CoolBet.co.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to MWO Sports, brought to you by CoolBet.co. Ryan Drury alongside Clarke and Steve Sabourin. We're very pleased to be joined by friend of the show, Ian Doig, longtime pro golfer and caddy as well. Doigie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, guys. Having a great day.
That's golf great. Applause, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
A little golf applause.
Yeah, there you go.
Clap for Doigie. He deserves it. Someone else who deserves the golf claps lately, of course, is our favorite son of Listowel here, Cory Conners, who's had two good showings in a row. Third at the Arnie Palmer Classic, and then takes sole possession of seventh at the Players Championship. Went into the clubhouse as the clubhouse leader. Of course, we saw an unbelievable final round by JT there. But let's dig into what Cory did the last two weekends here. Doigie, what did you make of his game and what made him so successful in those two tournaments?
Well, I mean, obviously his game is very sharp right now, and I really like the way he's swinging the golf club. I paid attention to a lot of his shots that I was able to see. The one thing that he's always had in his golf swing is he has a phenomenal change of direction. So what I mean by that is at the top of his backswing, he's never in a rush. There's a distinct pause. And so when a player is under pressure in the hunt of the event, to have that little bit of a pause so there's no anxiety gets into the golf swing, that really helps him, especially down the stretch in tournaments when he's in the hunt. I actually see great things coming for him. I'm glad he's taking this week off. He needs a bit of a rest after two big tournaments, and he's got a big stretch coming up. I expect to see him in contention over the next month.
Hey, Doig, is that pause new in his game? Like, have you noticed him change that recently?
No, he's had it all along, and it's, some teachers will say it's a little idiosyncrasy of his, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's been many players over the history of the game that have had that little pause at the top. Bob Murphy comes to mind for me as an old guy. He won the Canadian Open back in the 80s, and he had a very distinct pause. And then you think of Hideki Matsuyama. He's got a big pause at the top of his as well.
Speaking of little idiosyncrasies in golf swings, do you remember when Sergio went through that little waggle before he hit the ball? Like, it was getting out of control and must have been in his head. Has that ever happened to you? Like, have you had something where you just can't get rid of it and it just drives you crazy?
No, fortunately not. I've been lucky now. I did go through a period of time at the turn of the century where I had a slight case of the driver yips, and I could miss the fairways by 100 yards to the right. And it got to the point where I was playing nationwide stuff, and I went through almost a whole season where I didn't use a tee. The minute I put the ball up on a tee with my driver, it was going hard right.
Oh my!
So I started just hitting it off the ground all the time like it was a 3-wood, but I was using my driver. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty scary for a little while. Not fun.
It's funny because professional sports is such a repetition, right? But it's not always practice makes perfect. It's practice makes permanent, as Doug Neal, a pitching coach at the national level, always says. And I guess preparation is huge. So when you talk about Cory Conners taking this week off and preparing for a big stretch, what type of preparation is he doing?
Well, I think looking at his stats, you start to look down at his line, his greens in regulation, his ball striking, his driver off the tee. He's top 15 on the PGA Tour. So what I look at it is putting. When he's on, he's very good. But when he's off, he's well down, back down in around 100th on the tour. short game, he's 122nd right now, which is horrendous. So 3 things that I would look at. The first few days of the week, I would have believed that he did nothing, just relaxed, got all the essentials out of the way, making sure everything's in order, so that then he could work on putting, short game, and just maintaining the good ball striking that he's got right now, ready to go forward. The biggest thing, though, after 2 big weeks where he was fully in contention with a chance to win, is rest. He's got to rest. That's the big thing.
Absolutely. Cory Conners, like we mentioned at the top, finished 3rd at the Arnie Palmer, 7th at the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass. Let's talk about some of the other happenings throughout the weekend, and it all came down to Sunday, and that's always very exciting in the golf world. And we went in with old Lee in the lead, and this guy just cannot close out a big tournament over here. Westwood has been great over in Europe. He's won tournaments on 5 continents. He just cannot get that big win on the PGA Tour over here. What happened to Lee Westwood on Sunday, Doigie? What was it that caused him to melt down?
Well, early in the round, I saw a couple things. He looked a little anxious. His swing got a little out of sync. You saw him hit a couple big slices on number 2 and 4 that cost him. He hit it in water both times. And so when you really think of it now, he lost by a shot, but he gave away 3 or 4 shots in those first 4 holes of the tournament on Sunday, final round. And after he was kind of not in the lead anymore, he relaxed and went back to his game and played very solid down the stretch. That said, I wouldn't say that he lost the tournament. JT beat him with that round that JT, or the weekend JT had 64-68. That's hard to beat. So, Lee's a great guy, very personable, a lot of fun to kind of be around and that. And honestly, sometimes you're just snake bit. It's not like he's played poorly. He's just gotten beat by better scores, and that happens. I mean, when you think about golf, the leading winner of all time is Tiger. And at one point in time, Tiger was winning about 27% of the tournaments he played in. Now that's gone down over recent years. But after Tiger, the leading percentage-wise is Jack Nicklaus at around 7.5%. And then you drop down to about 3.5% after that. So out of every 100 tournaments you play, you might win 3 if you're one of the best in the world. So for Lee Westwood to go without winning in North America, for me, some people think, and I think he should have won more because he's a great player, but it's not like it's crazy. It's just hard to win.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And, I was actually had the opportunity this weekend to do some social distancing with Mr. Doig, and it was a fun afternoon. Saturday, we hung out a little bit together. And what I did find out, though, Ryan, maybe your question should have been better posed to Ian's wife, Kathleen, because she, I found out, is a huge Lee Westwood fan. And yes. What would she have said? Was she upset that he couldn't hold on?
Well, yeah. I mean, of course she was upset. She's in love with the guy. Actually, my wife has about 5 boyfriends out on the tour, but she really likes Lee, has always liked Lee, and Lee's always been very nice, and we've had some good pictures with him and stuff. And I think I told Clarke the story. Am I allowed to tell this story on air, Clarke? So
if it's not good, we can beep it out.
We can beep it out. So we were at, Kathleen and I were at the Masters one year, and Lee came out, and we got some pictures with him and chatted with him for a few minutes. But later in the day, we were over at the par 3 tournament, and he was coming along signing autographs, and there was 2 little old ladies sitting beside us in their chairs, and they were definitely in their 70s, maybe their 80s. And Lee comes walking along, and he kind of looks over at me, and one of the ladies looks at him, and her head's right at crotch level, and she looks at him, and she looks him up, she looks him down, she looks him up, and she looks at him and says, "Oh my, did your mommy ever dress you pretty today?"
Yeah.
So Lee and I had a pretty good chuckle out of that, and he came over and talked to me for a minute, and I said, "I bet you on your next shot, I know what you're thinking about." And when it was his turn to hit, he turned around and winked at me, so I knew exactly what he was thinking about when he was hitting his next shot. So
nice,
unbelievable.
Hey, you mentioned Tiger. Do you think he can come back from this latest car accident and be able to play and compete again?
I hope so. As a fan of Tiger and what he's done for the game of golf, 100%, I hope so. I think it would be one hell of a final chapter for him to come back and maybe win a tournament, and especially if it were a major. You never know, and you don't know what kind of drive he still has left at this age, right? How hard he's going to work at it to get back. I look at Wayne Middaugh last week at the Briar. I mean, broke his ankle and his leg in 11 different places, and I had lunch with Wayne not long after that, and he told me he didn't think he'd ever curl again, and here he was in contention to win. So if Wayne can do it, I'm sure Tiger can do it as well. It'd be fun.
Want to take a look at the Canadian landscape, and unfortunately, due to the situation that we're dealing with internationally with COVID, the Canadian Open, of course, has been shelved again. And what does that do for Canadian golf? Like, we're fortunate to have some pretty good Canadians in the PGA Tour, but when you can't come to Canada and play in a major, that has to be disappointing.
Very much so. Very disappointing. And as a Canadian player, and Cory would say this, and Mackenzie Hughes, Mike Weir, we would all say it. It was our fifth major. They talk about all the time. Players will say, well, when we're growing up, we dream and we talk about being, on the putting green or on the range practicing, and we're talking about, this is to tie Jack Nicklaus for the Masters lead, or this is to win the U.S. Open against Curtis Strange or whatever. As a Canadian, it was always, this is to win the Canadian Open. And so it's our fifth major. And I'm surprised that we've gone as long as we have without a Canadian winning it. With the group of players that we have on tour now, I certainly could see that changing over the next, 6 to 10 years. We got a good group of good players. It's just very disappointing that, again, for a second year in a row, we're not going to have it. I was looking forward to trying to qualify for it because it was at St. George's this year, and that's a golf course that I can play well on because it's not overly long.
Yeah, and like you said, I think, hopefully we will maybe see Mr. Conners win it a couple times. And Steve, like you mentioned, there's a lot of great Canadian golfers on the tour. I mean, the Honda Classic this weekend, we're recording this after round one. Mackenzie Hughes, the high Canadian, tied for 15th at 2 under. Of course, Matt Jones of Australia leading after the first round. We talked a little bit about Lee's tough weekend. Of course, Bryson DeChambeau, who he was paired with in the last pair, he had a bit of a rough day as well on 4. He shanked it a good 70 yards to the right, and he managed to recover and had an okay tournament at the end of the day. But let's talk about JT, Justin Thomas. I mean, he's the third-ranked player in the world. Everybody knows that this guy's an incredible golfer. But what he did on Saturday and Sunday in particular, was just pure domination. I mean, it's been a while, maybe not since Koepka at his last U.S. Open win, that I've seen a golfer completely obliterate a golf course and blow by his competition the way JT did. What was it about the way he played this past weekend, I should say, that launched him past everybody to an incredibly emotional win for himself?
Yeah, very emotional for sure. I watch his golf game. His golf game doesn't change week to week. It's always very, very solid. But in particular for TPC Sawgrass, he hits the ball very high with his irons. So you get hard, firm, fast greens where the ball comes in, a little lower ball flight. It's harder to keep it near the hole. He did a great job of that. I think about the shot that he hit into 11 on Sunday, and he went on to make eagle. Very high iron coming in over the bunker in the water. So he's just a very solid player. I think what was happening is, he had a bit of turmoil this year with something that he said that was caught on air, and he's kind of fought his way through that. And then his grandpa passing away. And here we are about a month or so past that. And I think it was just a matter of time before he was able to get the emotions kind of in check and get back into focus while he was on the golf course. And I think that came about this week. I would be very surprised to not see him in contention over the next 4 or 5 weeks, especially at the Masters.
I agree. And I like I said, I mean, he just dominated the tournament the last 2 days. Want to talk a little bit about 17. I mean, that hole is extremely famous. I mean, they were playing Tiger's better than most putt all weekend long. I mean, it's an iconic moment in a career of iconic moments. What is it about that hole? Like, it just has like a weird mystique about it. It's one of the weirder holes on the tour. Have you ever played it, first of all, Doigie? And second, what, if you haven't or you have, what is the strategy going into that hole?
Well, I have been fortunate enough to play it on a few occasions, and the hole gets into your head. I can tell you that the first time I was going to play there, which was a long time ago, back in the late 80s, I started thinking about the 17th hole 3 days before my tee time. So you think about that. It was in my head for 3.5 days. And then finally, when you get there, you've been thinking about it that whole time. So now you're all amped up. Like, what are you going to do? And so I can't imagine what it's like during the tournament, and what you're thinking about. And that's probably the hardest part. I mean, I look back at the year, I think it was Ricky Fowler. He made 4 2s or 5 2s on it, counting the playoff, right? And so to be able to go through that hole like that, that's crazy. But it's a nerve thing. You just have to get your nerves and your breathing under control and focus on it. It's not like it's a long shot. Like, we're hitting 9 irons and wedges and gap wedges now for these young guys. And so you think about how many times have I hit a wedge from 128 yards to 10 feet from the flag all the time until you put water completely around the green. Then all of a sudden it's a different shot, right? So it becomes a very difficult hole when the wind comes up. I remember caddying there the first year the tournament was played on that golf course. And in the practice rounds, it was so windy, downwind, the guys were actually talking about hitting it over the green, over the water to the far bank, and then hitting it back into the wind from over there and taking their 4 and running.
Wow.
That's how windy it was. So it never happened that way because the winds calmed down and everything, but it just gets into your head. It's, and which is, for me, is funny because as a good player, we're never worried about hitting it over water because we believe that we can get the ball in the air and carry it that far with whatever club. We're more worried about water that is adjacent to the green because we can push it right or pull it left, and that's where the water. So that's when we become nervous with water. It's not when we're trying to carry water, but the problem with that hole is you have to carry it. You can't go right, you can't go left, and you can't go long, or it's in the water everywhere. So that's what makes that hole so difficult and trying for the guys.
And I got to tell you, they have a replica hole of that 17 at Wooden Sticks. And I've played there many times, one of my favorite golf courses. And one time I was there, I was with my boss from the fan at the time, Nelson Millman. And the pin was at the front, like down in the little valley there at the front. And he hit a shot, I think it was playing like 110 yards. He hit a shot, hit the hill, and just started trickling. And it was like slow motion, right in the hole in one. Yeah. So if you ever want to go golfing, I love Wooden Sticks. I would highly recommend it. And you can just sit there all day with a bucket of balls and see if you can hit the green.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give that a try.
We could do that next summer. The Greg Seaman, one of the owners over there, is a friend of mine. So we could probably hook that up. No problem.
Let's do that. Absolutely. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about golf in general. Like last summer, again, with the situation, golf saw a huge push, people getting out, getting into the game. Have you heard anything in your circles about the same thing happening this year? We have above average temperatures. I'm sure people are chomping at the bit to get out again. What have you heard about golf in general in Ontario?
Well, I do know I talked to Amy in the pro shop today at our place at Tangle Creek in Barrie, and the phone's ringing off the hook, wondering if we're going to be open this weekend, which we're not. So there are some golf courses in the area opening, and I know down Burlington Way, there's quite a few that have already opened up. And yes, our memberships are up. The amount of traffic that we're getting on the website and through phone calls, way up. So it certainly looks like because of COVID, we're still going to have another banner year. I've talked to a couple other GMs at other courses in the area. The funny thing about it is, over years you have food and beverage and all that, but there wasn't much of that last year because we were closed at the start of the season. And golf courses are now not having weddings and outside tournaments and stuff because they found that last year they made more money just with green fees and people coming out and playing. And if they can continue that, that's where they're going to go. I know a local golf course here has already said no weddings, no outside tournaments at all. We're just going to have the green fees and let them play. So yeah, the numbers are good. I think they're going to be up again this year. And I'm getting from my academy, I'm getting a lot of interest from new golfers. I've already booked in about 8 or 10 new lessons. People have never played before. They're taking up the game this year for the first time.
And how do people get a hold of you?
Hi, Ian Doig Golf Academy, www.iandoiggolf.com.
That's perfect. Make sure you phone our friend Doigy for some lessons. I might have to go down there. Might be dipping into the podcast world too. We heard before the show, so pay attention to the website. Doigy will be launching himself into the podcast game, so welcome to that world as well. I do want to note before I ask you one last thing, Doigy, some big news in the golf world, and I'm glad you brought up Tiger Woods, guys. He has signed a new deal with Sony 2K to reinvigorate the Tiger Woods video game golf series. Now, if you're a big gamer like myself, you'll know he was with EA Sports for a very long time and had one of the most successful video game franchises ever. And of course, in recent years, Rory McIlroy took over the EA Sports games. Tiger is coming back. He's signed a new deal. I believe it's a 5-year agreement with 2K. So Tiger Woods will be gracing the cover of great golf video games again, which is great news. Doigy, before we let you go, like you mentioned, Clarke visited you recently. I heard he may have walked away with a couple trinkets. Well, why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, but don't you remember last time he was on the air, he was ripping me for my little Wilson driver?
Yes.
He was not happy with me still using it. So
we were able to find Clarke. Oh, there it is.
Wow.
A new tailor-made, well, not new, but a used tailor-made SLDR 460 with a shaft that I gave him. I took the shaft out of one of my older clubs and threw it in there for him. So he's got a good solid shaft, and I'm expecting nothing but 300-yard drives right down the middle this summer, Clarke.
I was doing that with the Wilson.
Oh, God. See, now he's going to be clamoring for his own video game, Clarke 2K.
Oh no, yeah,
Ian
took care of me, and I thank him for it.
And the other thing too is he might be the best dressed golfer in Listowel this year as well. He walked away with some clothing this weekend as well, so we looked after him from that perspective too.
Yeah, it was worth the trip.
Are we supposed to thank Nike for that?
I don't care who you thank.
We don't need to
thank anyone you want.
Nike's doing fine. We don't need to thank them. Geez, Clarke, what a spoiled brat you are. Yeah, Clarke 2K Golf. Steve, that'll end up like the ET game in the 80s. People will be finding that in dumpsters in 40 years. Our friend
All right, enough.
of the Ian Doig Golf Academy. Visit his website if you want to book lessons and learn from one of the best. Ian is your man. Doigy, thanks so much for doing this, buddy.
Thanks, guys, very much, and let's get those Leafs all fired up for the finish.
They'll get it figured out, as of course the technology failing us a bit at the end there. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have an interesting conversation. If you haven't been watching the NHL this year, the Buffalo Sabres are bringing tire fire to a whole new level. They are awful. We are going to talk with one of their most passionate fans, a man named Duane Steinel. People may remember a couple years ago, he had a viral rant on Buffalo Sports Talk Radio as a call-in that went viral. We're going to play that rant for you as we head into break here, and we'll come back and talk with Duane about what the heck his Sabres are going to do next. You're listening to and watching MWO Sports, brought to you by coolbet.co. Adam, roll the tape.
All right, 803-0550, 1-888-550-2550. Those are the numbers. Duane is going to lead us off this segment. Hi, Duane. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks, Bulldog. Thanks, guys. If you just give me a minute here, just to, I'll try and organize my thoughts as best I can. I'm just, I've the 24 years they've been in that arena. I think in some form of capacity, I've been a season ticket holder for about 15 of those years. You know, I started, my first hockey card was Brad May. My first jersey was Pat LaFontaine. I idolized Dominik Hasek. I played goalie because of Dominik Hasek. I work for Hasek's Foundation now as a coach, and, you know, my life in hockey has been started because of Sabres hockey. You know, I went to the finals games as a kid with my dad. I watched Jeff Sanderson score with one arm around Ed Belfour. You know, I have so many great moments to talk about with this hockey team. And, like, I'm surprised the organization remembered to wish Dominik Hasek a happy birthday today. I'll put it that way. It's so mind-boggling how we've fallen this far. And, like, I was cautiously optimistic coming into the season because I wasn't fully expecting playoffs, but I was happy with the way the season started because the competitiveness was there. Last year was misery 100% after the 10-game streak. It was absolute misery because the passion was not there. And it's been there. And then they go out and lay an egg last night in front of me. I was at the game. The first time I went to a game with my sister, by the way, and she had to sit there through that. And it's mind-blowing. Like, I don't need a Jerry Jones type of owner. Like, I need an owner who's going to answer to the fans when they misspell names on jerseys and have Chinese knockoffs on alumni. Like, what is going on? Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand it, man. Like, Bulldog, you've lived through this. You've seen it. Like, have you ever been, like, have they ever sucked the passion out of you like they have me? I've dedicated my life to hockey because of this team. Like, I can't do it anymore, man. Like I'm seriously, for the first time, considering just not being a season ticket holder this year. Even when the team was terrible, Ted Black would come on the station and talk to fans and address concerns. I don't need I don't need a damn camera in front of Terry Pagula every single day, but address our concerns. Be there when you screw up. Answer for the mistakes. Be accountable. You know, Pat LaFontaine being forced out of the organization, 5 years ago, however long it was. Like, I don't need an explanation, but it's just been mediocrity. It's almost worse than the Bills drought. And you know what? As I don't know what people's opinions of the man were, with Russ Brandon, but if Russ Brandon was running the team still, I highly doubt he would have allowed Chinese knockoff jerseys to be worn by Danny Garrett at Turkey Drive. I would have died on the ice, the goat head, missing deadlines. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is it? Like, I didn't need playoffs this year. I wanted it, but I didn't need it. But when you screw up for the fans as much as this team has over the last, 5 years, and just don't hold yourself accountable, go hide at your house in Florida. Like, what is this? Get in front of the camera and at least make us feel that we matter. That we matter to you. Like, I'm sick of it, Bulldog. I'm sick of it. I'm sorry. I'll hang up and listen. I'm sorry.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to MWO Sports. Ryan Drury here alongside Clarke and Steve Sabourin. We thank our buddy Ian Doig of the Ian Doig Golf Academy for joining us in the last segment. We are brought to you as always by coolbet.co. Very pleased to be joined by a new friend of the show, Duane Steinel. He is the host, one of the hosts, I should say, of the Two Goalies, One Mic podcast. He is a die-hard Buffalo Sabres fan, and that is unfortunate right now because the Sabres are having a rough go of things this year. Duane, first of all, welcome to the show. And second of all, we played your now infamous rant on Buffalo Sports Talk Radio from a couple years ago that went viral. What inspired you to call into the show and start your podcast as well?
Well, the podcast actually started a few years ago. It only lasted 2 episodes, and then my co-host, life kind of got in the way. Had a couple kids, and we had to put on hold, and then nothing if you want to say what inspired the rant, I guess last year, it wasn't like premeditated or planned. I was sitting in the parking lot of my gym, and I just got done watching the Sabres get shelled by the Senators after the All-Star break, and it was a team that was below you in the standings. You're getting ready to have a good chance to take a run at things and, against a bunch of teams below you in the standings and maybe see yourself in a playoff spot. And it was miserable to watch. It was so bad. It was the worst hockey I'd seen since the previous year. And it was just, I was sitting in the parking lot, just going through Twitter, Sabres Twitter, which is a very negative place, very dark place. And it just started to build up, man. It just a lot of negativity and a lot of, it's time to hold the ones responsible accountable. And it was, I've been defending the Pegula family for a very, very long time to that point, and it was just done. It was, in the beginning of the call, you hear me kind of get held up in my words, just kind of got mixed up. And I just said in my brain, I was just like, you know what, screw it, go. I guess the rest is history. Again, it was nothing that was planned or something I wanted to do or I expected to blow up the way it did. But, I guess it's been fun ever since. I've made a lot of good friendships since. Me and Cully got reacquainted. We've had a lot of cool guests on the show. Guys, I know you guys are some Toronto fans up there. We had Rick Vibe on the show recently. Former Sabre alumni, but obviously a former Toronto alumni as well. We had Steve Dangle on the show. Former Sabres alumni, Baron, Grant Fuhrer, Steve Shields, Rob Ray, Barnaby, Derek Plant, Dixon Ward, Olaf Kolzig from the Capitals. There's a lot of cool guests, a lot of great writers from The Athletic. And, we had Justin Bourne from, I believe, Sportsnet. He was one of our first guests. It's been really cool to make some relationships and meet some really cool people. I think that's the one positive I could take out of all of it.
Hey, Duane, obviously you must not have a kind place in your heart for Pegula, but do you think it starts and ends with him? Like, do you think they can get out of it? And I know we only have, half an hour for this show, but what would you do to turn this team around?
You need to hire hockey people to make hockey decisions. I know up in Toronto, Brendan Shanahan's been pretty integral in turning that ship around. Going on from obviously Lou Lamoriello. I know they chose not to bring him back, and then obviously you have Dubois and Keefe right now. You're doing a phenomenal job, but it's just after the Pat LaFontaine debacle where you annihilated a Sabres legend, the guy whose numbers in the rafters, you've chosen not to go that route again, and you've chosen to I guess I don't want to say trust the wrong people, but not put hockey minds to make hockey decisions. And I think that's where they fall short is, you're on your seventh head coach since you've taken over the team. I think this is the fourth GM, Kevin Adams. Now he hasn't done a bad job, but he hasn't blown me out of the water. A lot of people like to give him credit for Taylor Hall, but I agree that was a great signing at the time, but if I'm Taylor Hall and I want to get paid and I want to have an opportunity, to eventually get a long-term deal for a lot of money, I want to play with the best center available in free agency, and Jack Eichel was that. So how difficult was that of a signing? Was that really? If I'm Taylor Hall, it's like I saw what he did with Jeff Skinner and got Jeff Skinner paid $9 million a year. I want the same result from that. I want to score 40 goals. So I'm not willing to give him all the credit in the world for that, because I think that was more of a layup than people give it. Maybe might think, but. I think you need an assistant GM, and I think you could really use a president of hockey operations. But,
like every other team, right?
Yeah, Rick Dudley lives right in Lewiston, New York. You saw what he did with Carolina before he left that organization. You think it would make sense, and exactly, they're not willing to pay the money. You saw the budget cutting they did. During COVID, all the people they let go, and they took a lot of heat for that. And now they're still paying the previous head coach. Now they're paying Ralph Kruger to not coach. And it's miserable. Oh, miserable. I never thought it could get lower than last season, but I was wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
Well, it's got to be tough too, because with the success that the Buffalo Bills have had and the upswing they're going, but when you look at the talent and the skill level that should be on the ice, like it's got to be mind-boggling when you just mentioned them in one sentence: Hall, Skinner, and Eichel. Like it's you have to be befuddled.
No, the thing of it is, I'm sorry, my dog's here. The thing of it is, dude, not now. The same dog for my profile picture on Twitter.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I had him. I was actually just on with Sportsnet before this. I had him outside during that, and I didn't want to do that again to him, so I apologize, guys.
It's all good.
Yeah. Good. But no, it's see, dude, you made me lose my train of thought. Look what you did. I'm sorry.
Eichel, Hall, and Skinner. Frustrating.
Okay. The thing is, granted, Hall came here to play with Eichel, but you didn't have to play Hall on that first line. My opinion was you should have reunited the Skinner, Reinhart, Eichel line, the line that was possibly the best line in the NHL just a few seasons ago. But you chose to, after last season, where you saw him not do anything on the second line with your makeshift center of Marcus Johansson, you buried him on the fourth line. For the entirety of your tenure here, third and fourth line, you gave him very few opportunities on the first line, and you almost no opportunities on the first power play unit. And I don't think he played a single overtime minute this entire season, which is mind blowing to me. Absolutely mind blowing, because pre-Kruger, Jeff Skinner had a lot of success in overtime as a Buffalo Sabre, a lot of success in that season, and in his 40 goal season, 32 of his 40 goals were all 5-on-5. So it's just really bad. It's really mind blowing that like Ralph Kruger, who seems such like a well-spoken individual, he's an analytics guru. He doesn't read the analytics or read the room and see, maybe I should have this guy with Jack Eichel because my team really sucks offensively.
Yeah, it's confusing too. And like you mentioned, that year Skinner scored 40 in that 10-game winning streak that they had when the Sabres looked like a wagon that was coming alive. He scored 2 of those OT goals and he assisted on 3 others. So it's a little weird. Duane, I think the other thing too, and Steve, I'm glad you brought the Bills up, because when the Pagulas bought them and they brought in guys like Brandon Bean and obviously their great coaching staff, they let the football people handle that. I feel like with the hockey team, they've really meddled with things. And you said this earlier, Duane, they got to let hockey people make hockey decisions. One thing that's confused me over the years of futility that the Sabres have had for over a decade now is how much they alienate some of their alumni, like most notably Pat LaFontaine, a guy that I'm sure under better circumstances would like to be a part of reviving this franchise.
Yes.
And the other thing too is that they have an abhorrent scouting staff. And I'm not going to point to anybody in specific. I don't know their scouts off by hand. But you look at their draft results, and sure, it's easy to draft Eichel 2nd overall. It's easy to draft Reinhart 4th overall that year. He was a very good player.
I believe.
They don't make hay in the 3rd round and beyond. And their scouting staff was gutted by the Pagulas last year as well. That was a mistake to me. I mean, it's just outside of all of that, though, part of your rant that caught a lot of people's attention was things like the LaFontaine situation and just silly things they do it's bad enough the team's bad, but it's so much worse when you alienate key figures of the franchise from the fans, isn't it?
Yeah, again, one of the greatest things about Sabres hockey for me growing up, it was just, even if the team wasn't the best on the ice, like it was fun to be at a Sabres game. It was, there were the little things they did. Things I used to bring up were like the Sabres Carnival, where they would, they have the whole team in the arena for one day, and all the fans could show up. You get autographs. I believe the one year Derek Plant was in a dunk tank. You're racing players, the RC cars. It was a cool experience as a kid, man. It was a lot of fun. I have a lot of Kodak pictures my dad took. They don't do stuff like that anymore. And if the team is going to suck, at least like give us things that make us enjoy being around the team, enjoy being fans of the team. And they don't do that. And, the arena is not in good shape. I mean, I know money is a thing right now, but you would think that during this COVID pause, that they would have taken advantage of, like, hey, let's do some renovating to the arena that people complain about so much. Nope, not at all. And then you brought up gutting the scouting staff. I mean, I think you still needed to gut the scouting staff, but when I say gut, I mean hire just new people. It was the history of this team's drafting has been horrid. It's been so bad. Their misses on, second, third, honestly, first round picks. Like you said, it's easy to draft Dahlin first overall, Eichel and Sam second overall. It's easy to make those picks. Even Dylan Cousins at 8 was a good pick. Jack Quinn, many people question that. Marco Rossi was on the board. They need more help at center. But, Jack Quinn wasn't a hard pick. But all the, Nylander, Grigorenko, Gergensons. I mean, Gergensons, yeah, he's a solid bottom 6 player, but he was a first-round pick. He hasn't worked out. And then you see other former first-round picks, maybe not thriving or living up to the pick, but still playing in the NHL and contributing. Guys like Nikita Zadorov still playing in the NHL. And then let's not even start about Ryan O'Reilly. That's the whole that's and people love to blame Jason Botterill for that. And yeah, he did play his part in it, but you didn't have to trade Ryan O'Reilly. You never had to. I think that was motivated by ownership. I think there was something else there that isn't being told to the fans, because Jason Botterill isn't a dumb individual. He was bred in the Pittsburgh Penguins dynasty era. And, he knows the value of Ryan O'Reilly and what he means to a team, because he saw it firsthand, what it means to have depth at that particular position and what it means to the overall success of a hockey team. And you just don't trade guys like Ryan O'Reilly. So I knew he was due for a signing bonus. I'm one of many who believe that the Pagulas just didn't want to pay him that money and they wanted him gone. So there's just so much wrong with this team from the top down. And again, I think it starts with just, putting your pride aside, or however you think things need to be done in order for you guys to get success, and just hire hockey people. Rick Dudley, let him make those tough decisions that you've been failing at making. Let him build your scouting staff. Let him find the right people to scout, junior and college talent for you. Because again, you have a lot of good young players still in your system right now. You have Eric Portillo at the University of Michigan, who has been an absolute stud under the tutelage of Steve Shields, goalie coach there. Like a 1.65 goals against average as a freshman. It's insane. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. We have Dylan Cousins here in Buffalo, Jack Quinn in Rochester. You want to make sure you have the right people making these decisions, because you have these young core of players, and the team itself is still young. Jack Eichel was 23, 24 years old? I don't know offhand. Rasmus Dahlin's 20. These guys are still young. You don't want to continuously groom them in this bad culture of hockey. Bring in the right people to rebuild that culture, just like they did with the Bills. And be hands off with this team. Don't stop it with all this BS of just meddling with the team. It's just that's where you're going wrong, and that's where you're losing this fan base.
Duane, I wanted to ask you, just being south of the border, one thing I really missed this year being in the North Division is the Toronto Buffalo rivalry. Even though whenever Toronto went into Buffalo, they would always lose anyway. But do you miss the Toronto rivalry, and what do you think of the setup this year?
I could talk to you guys for an hour about that. I'm not gonna lie, that could be for another show. But yeah, here's the thing with me. Ever since the rant went viral, I still hate the Maple Leafs, but I love your fans. I love the Maple Leafs fans, because there's so much we have in common. There really is. We have so much in common. We if you guys win a cup, as much as I hate it, I will be happy for the fans. I'll be happy for the team. I'll be happy for the fans, because I know what you guys have been through. Because you have Stanley Cups, but you don't have a Stanley Cup. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Most of your young fans, you guys don't have Stanley Cups. I don't have. I mean, our franchise doesn't have a Stanley Cup, but even if we did, I don't have a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I want to say I want that, and that's what I miss the most. That '99 series, Hasek versus Cujo. That was some of my favorite hockey to watch, man. World class goaltending from both Hasek and Cujo, and just Matt Sundin, obviously Ty Domi, Darcy Tucker, all those guys, man. You guys, blood would be spilled down in Toronto or in Buffalo whenever these teams played each other. And it was such fun hockey to watch. And I think it's so good for the NHL to want both of these teams to be good, because when that rivalry is cooking, it's something to watch, man. People talk about the Battle of Alberta or whatever, but Buffalo and Toronto can be a lot of fun.
It really, really can. And Duane, I mean, we appreciate you doing this, buddy. And I really hope things turn around for you. I mean, like you said, there are a lot of good young pieces there. And I really hope that guys like Dahlin and hopefully Eichel, I really hope he doesn't get traded. I hope he stays. I hope that things start to turn around. I mean, I had
if you trade him, you will lose the fan base.
Yeah.
There's no return. There's no return a team can give you that's going to be equal to his value. Because in order to get that value, you're going to have to essentially mortgage your entire team. And what team is willing to do that?
Yeah, I just don't think it's realistic, and it would just be another heart in the dagger in the heart, rather. And I mean, yeah, I love Buffalo fans. I loved going to games there as a kid. It's a great place to watch hockey and interact with great hockey fans, some of the very best in the United States. I mean, I had a relative that captained the team. I have a soft spot for the Sabres. I mean, I want them to do better.
Chris, how what's the relation?
He's my fifth cousin, and so he's a distant relative.
Now, you might not be able to tell me. Was there ever any interest on his side of things in the Buffalo job before Kevin Adams got it?
I really couldn't tell you that. And I don't, I would speculate probably not, because they've made him promises since he became the AGM there that he would be the GM of the New York Rangers within a couple of years. Jeff Gorton will step aside. Kris will take over, which I mean is great for cousin Kris. Like, I mean, he's worked really hard. But yeah, like I said, Duane, I want the Sabres to recover. I really want that rivalry with Toronto to come back. And again, he is the co-host of the Two Goalies One Mic podcast. You can find it where all podcasts are found, including this show. It's not hard to find. Duane, we really appreciate you doing this, buddy, and we hope for better things ahead for your Sabres. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Anytime you guys want to, hop on our podcast or you want me on again, I'll be happy to do it.
Absolutely, man. We know how to get a hold of each other. We appreciate this, my friend. All right, we'll take one last quick break here before we bring on our wagering expert, Chris Abbott from CoolBet, to talk about some wagers, revisit what happened at the Briar, and talk a little bit about the NFL landscape. Lots of signings and some trouble down in Houston with their star quarterback. We will talk about that next here on MWO Sports, brought to you by CoolBet.co.
This is MWO Sports.
Welcome back to wrap things up here on MWO Sports for the week. Ryan Drury alongside Clarke, and we welcome on our wagering expert, Chris Abbott. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, boys. How are you guys doing today? No Steve this week.
Well, Steve was on. He had to take off. He's a busy guy, all right? He's a news director. This guy's got a lot on his plate, all right? Speaking of a lot on their plate, let's dive into an unfortunate situation developing in the NFL right now. Houston Texans star quarterback, who has voiced that he wants out for a long time now, Deshaun Watson, is in some legal trouble, is what we could say, as we record this on Thursday, March 18th. It's crazy. It's March 18th. A third civil suit was filed against him by a woman claiming sexual assault. So it's three separate women now that have filed cases against him. It's not looking great for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, due diligence has to, go through the process and everything. But and the NFL just released a statement that they are investigating this. And I mean, let's be honest, Chris, the history of the NFL you look back on the Ray Rice situation and things like that, I don't think anybody can count on them to adequately dole out punishment if punishment is due here. But if he is found guilty of any of this, his career could be in jeopardy here, and that would have wide-ranging effects on the league, fantasy sports, betting on the Texans or whatever team is trying to acquire him. Like, this could be a very, very bad situation for the NFL, which ultimately isn't the biggest issue here, but this is a sports show. What could this mean?
Yeah, I mean, so I think you did a good job of framing it there. The legalities of it and all that, we'll let that play out. I mean, oftentimes with these things where there's smoke, there's fire for sure. But we'll see what happens there. When it comes strictly to Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans, and their value for betting or fantasy or what have you, I mean, on the field, he's literally the only thing that they have left in Houston. So I don't know that, if he's there or not there, it's going to affect much, to be honest. I mean, it'll make the turnaround for the Texans more years than it's already going to be. Like, I think they're in for some hard times with that franchise. So I would think that, if Deshaun Watson's not in the league, it's certainly, if you've got him on, because he is a great player. If you've got him on, a fantasy team, a franchise, that's the word I'm looking for. And you're doing it every single year, and he's your star quarterback, and you picked him and you're like, I'm good for 10 years. Now you're scrambling. So I don't know that it would affect their odds too much from like a Super Bowl contender type thing, because they're already sky high. But it certainly would shake things up.
Just in terms of betting on his potential location, I know a few friends that have laid bets on his potential new team. I mean, the Bears are in the mix. I mean, obviously they're out now, having signed a quarterback and in Andy Dalton. My Patriots were apparently rumored to be in play. There are a number of teams that were sniffing around this guy. Has there been any action on your part that you've seen in terms of betting that could be affected now on his potential destination?
Yeah, I mean, he was the favorite odds were for him to return to Houston, but after that, Denver and Carolina, two teams that definitely need quarterbacks, are right there on the list. I mean, I know that John Elway's come out and said, we're going to make this work with Drew Lock kind of thing, but as soon as they can replace Drew Lock, they're going to replace Drew Lock. It'll be something to consider for sure, because there's not many star quarterbacks that can walk into a locker room and instantly turn your team around. He would be one of them. And then I guess you'd have to look at, if he is let go by the Texans because of this, legal trouble. I think you got to look at teams from a betting perspective who have maybe not had the best morals and have employed some of these legal cases in the past. Obviously, Kansas City is one of those teams. He's not going to replace Patrick Mahomes. So, it's more about then, I think, the culture and the the level of tolerance of legal issues off the field, as opposed to what you can bring to the team on the field. See who's willing to take that risk.
Yeah,
Chris, let's turn our attention to on ice now with the Brier wrapping up last Sunday. An exciting week, I thought. Team Epping, Team Howard, or Wayne Middaugh, however you want to say it, I thought were right in contention. And then they just sort of fell off at the end of the week. And Botcher with his first Brier. Did you make any money on that?
When it came down to it, and oftentimes for these events, the futures bets and then people betting on these teams during the tournament, you're usually in a negative position to pay out your futures bet. You just try and move the risk around. Our biggest risk was on Kevin Cooey, so for him to lose was actually good for us. We also had risk on a market that we had created. Will Brendan Botcher finish second place at the team's request, by the way? So I don't think it was the team. It was their social media account who said, what are the odds? This is before the tournament. What are the odds for us finishing second again? Yeah. But, it's a great story. I'm really happy for them. They started the week maybe just average and then really kicked it into high gear. And I thought, I thought the Middaugh Howard team definitely would have overachieved along the way, and eventually, the cream rose to the top. But I think it was a fantastic story. I think it was great for the sport. I think it was great for sports overall and great for Canada. But yeah, we from how we did in the tournament perspective, I think we didn't make a whole lot of money. We took a lot of bets. But there was some predictable outcomes early in the week, and the best teams were there who we saw action on before the tournament on the weekend. So it was a lot of fun though, and we'll be having some odds for the playoff round of the mixed doubles, and then of course the men's and women's worlds coming up afterwards. So it's been great.
I'm not sure exactly how they've changed the format, but I didn't get it at the end. I don't know why. Maybe because my guys weren't there. But the Sunday, the semifinal and the final just seemed. Well, the final obviously is the same, but getting there, it was different, right? And I don't know if I like the format.
It's different. Change is hard when we're used to watching curling in a certain way in the page playoff system and everything else. But in order to accommodate, they want to have all the territories and provinces represented. In order to accommodate that, you have to expand your pools. So I like the idea of carrying your preliminary round, if you want to call it, into that championship round on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I thought it was great. I think it ensures that you have to play every other top team. You can't sneak by and have someone else get knocked out on your behalf. So I like that part of it. So I think maybe they could do some tinkering. I don't know that you want to be having, that team to have the semifinal in the morning and then the final at night. And they just narrowly divided. Well, they had to do it at the Scotties, right? They had a tiebreaker in the morning, then the semi, then the final. And it's an awful lot to ask for the players because those last few days, they play a lot of curling, no draws off, back to back to back. So, I think some of the players might not like the format as much, but from a fan perspective, to see all these teams have to play each other, it was pretty great. You just need more feeds on more rinks when you got those 8 men's teams going head to head, and you've only got the one TV game. It'd be great. TSN's got 78 channels. It'd be great if they had the capability to, even with just the players mic'd up instead of commentary or whatever.
Yeah, they have done that in the past where they've split the games, but yeah, it was fun to watch. I love watching curling.
It was fun to watch, and like you mentioned, Kris, hot time to bet on curling with lots of great tournaments on the go and coming up. I would like to pose one last thing to you. We had Sabres super fan and host of Two Goalies One Mic podcast, Duane Steinel, on just before you. His Sabres are, you fade the Sabres as much as you can as a bettor. I'll pose this to you. Let's say I give you plus 700 odds. I'll set it at, I'll set it at plus 700. I believe at the time of recording this, they have 23 games left. Do they win 5 more games? I'll give you that at plus 700. Do you lay $5 on that? 5 more wins out of 23 games. Do you take that bet?
They're in a tough division. I'd have to look at who they play down the stretch because I feel like they've already got some of the games against New Jersey. Yeah,
a lot of Boston.
Yeah, so if they had more games left against New Jersey, Philadelphia, who else in that division?
The Rangers.
Pittsburgh. But I mean, when you get into playing multiple games against Washington and Boston and the Islanders, I feel like you'd be in a lot of trouble. Obviously, it's a bit of a train wreck what's going on in Buffalo right now, but also that's a really tough division. And I don't think this season, the way it shook out, did them a whole lot of favors when they would have been in a division with, Ottawa. They would have got to play Florida and Tampa a little bit more, although I think those teams are a little bit overrated based on their division. Like the Panthers have a phenomenal record, but I don't know that they're really that good. So, I think the realignment didn't help Buffalo this year, but I'd for plus 700, I'd have to take them to go 5-18. I'd take that bet.
He would take that bet. It's not official, but yeah, you heard it here first. He would take the bet. I would maybe consider it as well. All right. We appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. My pleasure, guys.
Our wagering expert, Kris Abbott. Make sure you visit CoolBet and lay some heat down on these great curling tournaments, and maybe don't bet on the Buffalo Sabres. Unless you want to take the over. Bet the over in Sabres games. You can do that. All right. You can find the show on all the best podcast apps. We air Friday nights just after 6 on CKNX AM 920 and CKNX.ca, except for Friday nights like this week when we will air just after 5:30 because the Leafs play at 7. And on nights like that, we carry right into 6:30 pregame. You can catch every pregame and Leafs game live on CKNX this year, including the playoffs. So remember that. We also air Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9 on Whiteman, and we are also on YouTube Friday nights, debuting at 9 p.m. I am Ryan Drury. That's Clarke. And for our other co-host, Steve Sabourin, our friend Ian Doig of the Ian Doig Golf Academy, Duane Steinel of the Two Goalies One Mic podcast, of course, our wagering expert, Kris Abbott from CoolBet. We appreciate you listening to and watching MWO Sports, brought to you by CoolBet.co.